Welcome to The Route to Revenue, two entrepreneurs sharing the path to curbside cash flow. I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike. We're both founders of two successful recurring revenue businesses in the home services industry, and we've built our companies from startup to profitable and scalable operations.
This is the show for entrepreneurs serious about building sustainable home service businesses. Whether you're starting out, scaling up, or ready to move beyond trading time for money, we share proven strategies for creating predictable monthly revenue streams.
And while our expertise comes from the bin cleaning industry, the systems and principles we discuss work for any recurring revenue home service. Think lawn care, pest control, pool maintenance, and beyond.
Each episode, we break down real-world strategies for customer acquisition, retention, operational efficiency, and building systems that generate consistent income while you step back from daily operations.
Are you ready to transform your home service businesses from a demanding job into a profitable asset? This is The Route to Revenue.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Route to Revenue. I'm Ben McGee with Green Can Cleaner. I'm here with Mike Walker of Spiffy Bin.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Mike. And today we actually have someone that we've been looking forward to having on for quite some time, Jason Proctor with Canology. So welcome, Jason. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
I think what I'd like to get right in today, and I'd love to hear, how you started Canology in 2016. So that was before most people had ever even thought of or heard of can cleaning as a business. And so what did those early days actually look like? Share with us.
Well, I was visiting family in the UK and visiting my brother, and I saw this service being performed. And I just thought that, man, this would be a good service, actually, for my kid who was about to go on a study abroad program. And I brought the idea back to him, and he absolutely, was not interested in doing that. About a year or so went by, and I had previously sold a business, and I was looking for something different to do. And our cans were disgusting. My wife was trying to find somebody to take care of that problem. And she looked, and there was no providers in Northern California. So that was sort of the nexus for Canology. So then I just sort of went out and I started talking to friends and peers, and I would ask them about it. And I basically got a 50-50 split answer. On one side, I had the "why the hell would I clean a trash can" group. And then on the other side, I had "when the hell are you coming to my neighborhood" group. So with that, a 50-50 result like that, I figured, okay, that's okay. I'm going to proceed and move forward with this. So I secured 2 used trucks from Southern California. When I got those up and running, I quickly realized that only a small percentage of the people that were originally expressed interest actually signed up and paid for the service.
Right.
So in the early days, it was definitely a lesson in persistence and education and learning how to build a market that really didn't exist in our area. So it was challenging to start.
To a business nobody ever heard of, which was always the difficult thing in the beginning.
Exactly. It was an industry that was non-existent.
And how much has changed in the 10 years? Have people heard of you by now, or are you still amazed at the amount of people that haven't heard of Canology?
Yeah. So now when in the early days, when I was marketing, I dabble my feet in sort of Facebook marketing and things like that. And I'd get answers like, "Why are people so lazy? The garbage company should be replacing these things." Very, very negative responses. Now, when we rarely get those responses, but now we do, our customers jump right in and basically shut them down immediately,
Nice.
which I love that. I mean, it's very satisfying to see that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So before you got into bin cleaning, you were in the plumbing industry, right? So having that
Right.
type of a trade, that what did you have to, like, completely unlearn or move to a new skilled trade, into this route-based recurring revenue model? And is that what drew you to this model because it was recurring revenue and instead of waiting for somebody's faucet to burst or what have you?
Well, in the plumbing, heating, and air conditioning business, you're basically trying to market to folks that have a failure once every 20 years. So it's very, and there's a lot of people going after that business. In the plumbing, as far as like what could bring over from plumbing, well, there was definitely a service related business. So I've always been very focused on customer service and customer retention. But I also had this knowledge of, mechanical systems, electrical control systems, and that really segued well into this industry because the equipment is very mechanical, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So in Canology and we've talked about, I mean, you really are kind of one of the original pioneers of this industry, but what was the hardest season that you've been through and what kept you from walking away? I mean, I know every entrepreneur, and certainly I have had times where I've gone, I just need to be done with this. Who wants to buy this business for $1?
Well, I've definitely had days where I would have given it away. But I guess in the early days, it was just, we had tiny, tiny routes. And, I had these two new trucks that I'd purchased. I went right into the deep end.
Right?
And, I wasn't making any money and I wasn't covering overhead. So I was just digging myself in a deeper and deeper hole. I do remember that I made a conscious effort that I wanted to start advertising. I would put out bin tags. I was walking 8 to 10 miles a day, putting these bin tags out. And I hired my first driver, which put me further in the hole. And
Sure.
then I remember getting a cease and desist from a conglomerate of haulers saying that I could not market to on their cans. And then
Damn.
relatively shortly after that, my first driver was talking on his phone and basically rear-ended somebody and totaled the truck. And at that point, I thought I was pretty wise having a second expensive truck.
Right?
And he then proceeded to take that truck and run into the overhang of a building and crumpled the back hopper that made it unusable.
I remember that.
And I just remember him coming back with that truck, and I was just gutted, and he was like, "Well, I guess we're done." I'm like, "Oh, no, we're not done." And I remember taking a big, 6 by 6 post, pushing it up against the tree and ramming the truck back into the tree to get the hopper to a point when that he could go back and start cleaning. But yeah, there was some pretty tough moments in the early days.
And how many side doors have you gone through?
If there was a medal for it, I'd have a few of them right now. On the good side, though, I'm pretty proficient at making them now.
I like at one point he had gone through I think 2 in like a 2 not he you personally, but your business, 2 in like a 2-week session or period, and Ben's comment was, "I think you should just remove the framing of your building so that they don't drive through the frame anymore. They can you just get rid of the building and you'll be all set."
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have the
Yeah.
building, they don't have anything to run into.
Well, I've
So
taken those doors now and I've suspended the old doors with a sign across them. Make sure the doors are locked before you drive into the building.
and they've hit it
We
how
haven't
many
had a
times
failure
since you
yet,
did
but we
that?
haven't had one. We haven't had one fail since then, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, that's a
Good.
plus.
Good. Yeah. That's a great reminder to have the carnage hanging around. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know to know Jason is to know that nothing is ever perfect unless he's created it, I think would be a
No.
pretty fair statement. And if it's not automated, it's not complete either. So I know you went through and you created a custom CRM for Canology. Back in the days when there was still Jobber was available and there were a lot of ones available, but you chose to go out and create an off-the-shelf solution. Can you walk us through that decision? Maybe things that you thought
Well,
you
I
could
don't know
gain
that
or
I don't know if Jubba was available. I probably evaluated it and it didn't do what I wanted it to do. I yeah, I get a little focused, tunnel vision on what I want. So then I couldn't find it. There were, I think the part that was really missing was the web ordering and then the follow up marketing part. I couldn't seem to find that. And also the routing was not really great at the time. So I have a friend that was a programmer and I was talking to him about it. And, he pitched that, let me put something together that can do this. And so we built this software over the last 6 or 7 years. And, it's working well for us now. I mean, it worked for me at the time because he was willing to do it as a percentage of gross sales, it cost me nothing at the beginning, and it works well for him now. So, and we still use that software, and it's working, but it's an expensive. It was an expensive decision
Yeah.
ultimately.
But one of your concerns that you've mentioned a couple times, and hopefully your colleague doesn't listen to this episode, but was the bus scenario. If he
Yeah,
gets hit by a
absolutely,
bus, so
absolutely.
have you tried to mitigate that any, or would you just then swap to another system, or
My head
maybe
is firmly planted in the
explain the bus
sand.
system theory first too?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, he's actually a pilot, so I mean, the bus theory could happen, but yeah, I mean, if my developer gets hit by a bus tomorrow, he's got the keys to the castle, right? So there's no way I'm going to get those keys back. As far as mitigating that, I've looked at other software platforms, and for whatever reasons, I mean, I looked at some of the big ones, and they all have their weaknesses, right? So, and it's in some level, I mean, even the ones that are tailored towards this industry, if you have small teams that are running it, once again, you know, the milkman thing still is a factor to some degree. But I think that, I think ultimately, especially with AI, the development of AI, I think there's going to be breakthroughs in the software solutions for our industry. And I'd expect that we're going to see really excellent software capabilities and at a much lower price point, certainly a much lower price point than I'm paying right now.
For sure, for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited about what AI is doing and going to do in the future.
Hmm.
Yeah. You're known in the industry as kind of the guy that fixes the trucks, but I think what most people don't realize is that, and we're kind of diving into this, but I just want to say before my next question, I don't think people realize that you actually have done the same amount of work that you do on figuring out the trucks and the solutions to the trucks you've done on software. So, I know that you use a multi-software stack, and I know that, it's Workway for routing and B5 Star and My Service Area and Pipedrive. And so how do you think about building a tech stack, and how do you know when a tool's earning its keep versus just adding complexity?
Yeah, that's a profound question. I mean, I guess the way I look at it is whatever we add on, it has to be completely self-sustaining. There needs to be minimal human involvement. I mean, basically it has to have an open API. I guess a good example of that is we use Walkway for our routing. So our CRM says, okay, this group of people is, on the route for tomorrow. It's like 200, for instance. At the end of the day, we just hit a button. It sends those customers to WorkWave. WorkWave then prioritizes the stop. It takes into consideration time windows and things like that. So we just implemented, you know, time windows for noise ordinances, right? So, you know, it will take into consideration those time windows, and it will structure the route in a way that we're not going to be violating any of that kind of stuff. I mean, this is a company that has sort of dedicated their whole existence into the routing software business. We have one developer. We can't do that, right?
Right.
So that kind of expertise is great. I mean, we use another great example is the My Service Area, right? It filters out customers or areas that we don't want to serve, and in the event that there's another service provider in their area, we will refer that customer to them, and then in return we get leads. And this all happens underneath the scenes, and so it's a no brainer for that to work. So basically, for us, any third party software that we bring into the stack has to operate without human interaction, has to solve a specific problem, and it has to improve efficiency or directly benefit the customer. And, if it doesn't meet those criteria, we don't bring it on.
Awesome. Yeah. I think you and I talked about this a little bit. We had Chris from MSA on,
Oh,
and
yeah. He's a great guy.
I think he actually used you as an example of, the zones and how to set this up with different prices in different areas and things like that.
Yeah.
And he also talked about how Jason challenged him, whether
Yeah.
directly or indirectly, to come up with these solutions. So they hadn't thought of things before. And then Jason,
Right.
you mentioned to him, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that. And he's like, hold on a second. And he went to his developers and they've figured out a way, thanks in no small part to you're challenging them to make a solution to perhaps a problem they hadn't thought existed or hadn't thought of yet.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and then you just have these open dialogues, and you kind of brainstorm this stuff, and it comes up. And the great thing about Chris and my service area is we can have that conversation face to face, and within a day or so, they implement it. And I mean, I
Mhm.
love that. That's great, and that's
Yeah.
one of the fantastic things about having our own developer. I mean, we come up with a situation. I can talk to a human; it gets done.
Mhm.
A lot of software companies, especially all the big ones, it's like their programmers are like the Wizard of Oz behind the green curtain. You can never talk to them.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Probably a question we should have asked you when we let off the episode was, what does your operation look like today? Number of trucks, team size, stops a day, service area. Can you paint us a little bit of a
Yeah.
picture of what Canology became after nearly a decade in business?
Yeah. So today we have 10 trucks, two of which are essentially a backup position. And then we have a SP5 dumpster truck, which is really underutilized. It's an area of the business that I really need to focus on. I think the commercial side of this industry is in its infancy. So we just really need to focus on getting that thing going. As far as staffing goes, we have 7 drivers at the moment, 3 VAs that answer our inbounds. And then we have an operations manager in San Francisco, and we have an operations manager in the East Bay. And we just onboarded a full-time mechanic, and we're training him. And we have a business development manager who happens to be my son. Um, so yeah,
Nice.
that's kind of what the size we're at. And as far as customers, we serve somewhere between 150 and say 225 customers a day, I would say. Um, and they average about 2.7 cans per stop. So yeah, it's taken a decade to get there. I often
That's
equate this
fantastic.
industry to a steam train. It takes a ton of energy to get it to move, and once you get it going down the line, and you've reached critical mass, it's a lot easier to keep it going.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
overnight success, 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that the way it works? So you I mean, you interact with so many people in this industry and you're constantly trying to give back. What is the single biggest operational mistake you see newer operators making? Something you either made yourself or you watch others make that quietly kills the business before they get traction?
Well, I would have to say the biggest mistake that I see constantly is underestimating the financial runway required and having unrealistic expectations about how fast they're going to scale.
Right.
A lot of people get excited about the trucks, right? And I was no different, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
folks assume that enthusiasm that you have alone is going to translate into rapid customer growth, but it doesn't. And this is a customer acquisition business first and an operations business second. And if you solve the marketing side early, don't solve the marketing side early, then really nothing else matters. It's just going to be a slow decline.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ask me what my biggest
Well, yeah,
my
what was
biggest
your biggest
mistake was?
mistake? Yeah,
Yeah.
what was it?
It kind of fell into that what I just previously said. My biggest mistake in the early days was not committing to online advertising soon enough. I tried to grow more organically than I should have, and it slowed everything down. So, my advice for anyone coming into this industry is simple: just invest early in a professional marketer. We use Bradley Robertson's. There are other folks out there that are capable, but make sure you have somebody that's actually done this in this industry and be willing to spend aggressively on customer acquisition. We've found that the churn rate, if you're running the business correctly in this industry, is extremely low. And the lifetime value of customers is relatively high, which means whoever's willing to spend to acquire customers early enough normally succeeds.
Yeah, I will tell you that I made the same mistake, and I think you and I had the conversation, and you'd learned the lesson and kinda shed some light for me. I was like, "Well, why why spend money on gaining these customers organically?"
Yeah.
And you were like, if you're gaining this many organically, if you were spending money on social media, you'd be gaining 2 or 3 times as
Yeah.
many."
And to
And
be
so I
clear, this is
thought,
not an area that I have any expertise in. I've abdicated that to professionals.
right. And, it was on your advice that I went down that road, and I'm glad I did. So, yeah, thank you.
We're going to put a pin in it right there for part 1. In part 2, Jason takes us into the glamorous side of the business. Broken trucks, busted doors, water reclamation, and why cheap equipment usually sends you a very expensive invoice. See you in part 2.
Well, Ben, that's a wrap on another episode of The Route to Revenue. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you would hit like, subscribe, and leave us old guys a comment about what we did well. And if we did anything wrong, can it and keep it to yourself.
If today's strategy sparked some ideas for your business, don't keep them to yourself. Share this episode with a fellow entrepreneur who could benefit from these insights.
Remember, building a recurring revenue business, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Take one actionable step from today's discussion and implement it in your business this week.
Want to connect with us between episodes? Find us on Facebook or at our website. We'd love to hear how you're applying these concepts in your own home service business.
And until next time, keep building those recurring revenue streams and stay on the route to revenue.
The route to revenue.
Nice, Ben.